What's up, guys? My name is Andy, and today this is going to be part 2 of the Arch Linux installation guide. So we're going to be going through different things today with making configuration files, like generating fstab, doing different things about configuration, and things from that. So, as we did in the previous video, we installed the basics of Arch, and I'll have the annotation of that video in the corner, so you can go back and watch the beginning part. That gives you right up to the installation of the base system, and now we're just going to do some generation. This is also part of that, so just, if you're installing this with the series, just keep on going. You're not done yet. We have a little bit more to do. So the next command we're going to go through is generating fstab. So fstab is pretty simple to make. It's gen fstab-u -p /mount etc or mnt. I say mount. It doesn't really mean mount, I don't think. I just say that because okay, and that's that. And cat /mount, so we can view the file etc fstab. And there we go. So now this is just a check to see if everything's right. And it looks like good. Yeah, we're good. So we have the first one, which is root, second one, which is home, and the third one, which is swap. Again, I'm going to say swap is optional. I didn't really say that before. I'm going to have an annotation back there in the first part of the video, and swap is optional. You don't have to do swap. I even don't recommend swap on the desktop. You don't need it on the desktop. It's mostly used for laptops with low amounts of RAM, like I have it for my Lenovo T61 with 2 gigabytes of RAM. That's where it's most useful, with low amounts of RAM. If you have a desktop with low amounts of RAM, then I do recommend it. If you're barely hitting 1 gig of RAM, or even less than 2 gigs of RAM, or even 2 gigs of RAM, then I do recommend it. But if you have 8, 16, you don't even need to touch swap, because after when you get that high in RAM, you don't even need it. So now this is the next part, which is really important. And there's also a warning that if the fstab file should always be checked after generating it. If you encounter errors, run gen fstab, but we didn't run any errors. If you do run into an error, and this doesn't look like mine with the /home and then nothing else, then you may have an issue. Then I'd recommend going onto the Arch Linux Beginner's Guide and then following their definitions and things how to fix an error. But personally, for me, I've not actually encountered an error. So now we'll clear this out, and the next part is chrooting into your installation. So we're going to chroot into this. So chroot /mount bin /bash, and there we go. Now we are in our installation. So this is we're in the root directory. And this is also a very helpful command, Arch. This is also a helpful command when you either make a mistake or something and you have to get back into the CD, or say you can't boot back into Arch for some reason, then you have to get back in the CD. Then you can do this command. You have to put the CD back in, and then you're able to get back into your Arch installation without even having to boot it, because you can get back through the CD. Next would be local, and that's pretty easy to do. We can look at locals, just generating local files, the local file. So we'll do local.gen. And this is the region area, so there's some examples up here you can take a look at, pause the video, take a look at. For me, I'm in en us.utf-8, so we're just going to scroll down until we see that. So there it is, I found it. So en_us.utf-8-UTF-8, depending on your region, pick that one. I think you can look that up online, your region, and you can figure that out, and you can look it up through the Arch wiki as well. We'll do local, we'll clear this out just to give some room. We'll do local.gen, and that will generate, oh, I spelled it wrong. My spelling is impeccable today, isn't it? -gen, and then we'll generate the en_us UTF local file. So now we'll export that out. So export. So these are all the commands you should be typing in when you're in your installation. This is what these are the commands to type in to make a successful Arch installation. So I hope you're following along pretty well. And yeah, so next is console font and key map. And the console font and key map, I've never actually had to edit that file or generate that file in general, and that's changing the key map. I will show you what the command to type in, but I've never actually done this personally. So that would be this console.config, and in here you'll type in key map, and then that equals a certain thing. Like for their example they have here, it's a foreign key map and the font. I'm not going to do that because I've never had to do that. I don't have a different standardized keyboard, but in case you do, if you're from another country other than the United States, then I'd probably recommend, if you have another type of keyboard like a ZERTY or some type of other type of keyboard, then you'd probably have to do that. Next will be time zones. So to list the zones, we're going to type in ls-l, and then there we go. And this will show you all the different zones. So you can see here on the right, I don't know why it's like this. I don't know if that's if I'm using the wrong, if I'm nanoing into it or whatever. This is the command they have on the guide. So previously before it looked a lot different where you could see different zones. So the way I've always set it up this way. So I'm gonna write the command I've always written. So that is ln-sf/user/share or zone info / I put New York. Yep, I spelled right. America. Actually, that's backwards. America / New York. And then etc local time. Next would be hardware clock. After you set up the zone, time zone correctly, we do hardware clock. So HWC clock, SYS OHC, and then UTC. And there we go. Now system clock is up. And now we're going to set the host name. Host name is like the name of your computer on your network. And it's just the name of your computer, like where you see root at Arch ISO. This is where you'll see that name. So I'll type in Arch PC. And that is going to be the host name of this computer now. So, host name. There we go. Great. So now we'll go to the nano. We'll nano into /etc/hosts. And in here we can type in the host name. So around outside of this. Actually, we don't have to type it next to that. Just type it right here. We'll just type in Arch PC. And then Arch PC. And we're done. Great. So that's host name set up properly, and then we'll clear that out. Now it's time to configure the network. So this is another very important part. Configuring the network, again, for the second time, this is on the Arch installation now. So if you are using a wired connection like I am, and we'll type in IP link again. So IP link, you can see my my connection or my Ethernet is named ENP0S3, and this is an important name to write down in the beginning of the installation because we need it here now. If you're like me and you're running with Ethernet, which I do recommend using in the beginning of the installation, then once that I almost recommend, well, I would recommend using wireless if you're going to be using wireless on the computer all the time. Use wireless during the installation so you can see if it's supported. And you can look up whatever that wireless chip is, either USB dongle. I recommend never getting Linksys. The Linksys USB dongles are not Linux compatible. So if you do use Linksys, it's not going to work for Linux. I don't know why they don't support Linux, but they don't. I do recommend an EddieMax. An EddieMax you can get from Amazon for like $10. It's a fantastic wireless little mini USB dongle you can slip in, and it's really, really good. But for Ethernet, if you're like me, you can start up a DHCP-CD service. And this is the command right here. And for this part, this is where I put my interface name. So right here, enp0s3.service. And I can, I typed in system wrong. Again, spelling is not on point today. So system CTL, and there we go. So created system link from there, and it's made the service now. And now I should auto connect to that every time I boot the system. From there, if you're using wireless, I'll even show you the packages, and we do have to download some packages for wireless. We have to download, so depending on what you want to use, and I do recommend looking at the Arch guide as well, because for this video, I'm showing you how to install, but I also want you to be able to understand the Arch guide, because for you, it's personal. It's a personal installation. There's a lot of things with your hardware, your different drivers, you can have a different graphics card than I do, so things will be different. They could be different for you compared to me. That's why I highly recommend taking a look at the Arch Beginner's Guide just to get a hang of it and just be able to do it again, so you can see more in depth what I'm talking about, and if you're getting a problem, go see what's going on, and be able to figure out if other people have the problem, you can solve it from there. So this is the first time you're going to be using the Pacman Applications Manager, or Package Manager is a better word. So first thing we'll install is IW and WPA Supplicant. Kent. There we go, and we'll download those, and that'll be done very shortly. There we go. Clear that out, and then we'll do dialog, which is adding support for Wi-Fi menu. And Wi-Fi menu is one thing you can use in the installer, But if you type it in now, it probably won't work. No. So you have to please install dialog to use Wi-Fi menu. It was during the ISO image. When you're in the ISO, Wi-Fi menu works by default because it's a different version of Wi-Fi menu that doesn't need dialog, or dialog is on the ISO, but you have to install it here. So pacman-s dialog. There we go. Continue. And great. Dialog's installed. And now if you have a wireless card, you can use Wi-Fi menu if it worked before. If it didn't work before and you didn't have it up, either you had to set it up like before, like you had to take a look at here. If it says it's, where it says multicast, if it says it's down, you could do something like that. No idea what's driving around my house, making very loud noises, just to ruin my recording. So there's different things with network. That's what I do recommend. One thing, if you want to connect automatically to known networks, this is what you can install, which is WPA Action D, and this is one thing you can install that will automatically connect to you to known Wi-Fi networks. This is very simple. So to be able, right after you're done with pacman-swpa Action D, the command you use for setting up that service is enabling the Nectel auto command. And right here where I put interface name right here is where you would put the interface name like above here. So where I have ENP0S3, you would have your wireless. And usually that will start with a W, so it would be like WPL, something like this. And that's what you would type in there to start the service for Action D, so it would start automatically and be able to connect to automatically known networks. Another thing is setting up the root password. So to do that, you just type in password, like this, a little bit different spelling. Then we'll just type in the default password here. I'll do something very simple. Great. Now next is something also very important. This is imperative for you to boot into your, once you complete the installation, we have to have a bootloader. And I feel like this is the part of the video that's going to be most controversial in the bootloader I choose. As I feel, I'm not sure if other people, because I haven't met many other people who've actually installed Arch Linux in person or experienced with them. So I don't use Grub, I use Sys Linux. And for me, this is just a personal experience problem, is the computers I've tried to use Grub with, I have failed to do it properly. And either this is my own problems, my own incapability of installing Grub, maybe that's it, but I just like, I don't know why I like Sys Linux more. So for me personally, I like to use Sys Linux. It's up to you if you want to use something else. On the beginner's guide, there's more options for different bootloaders. There's Grub, there's Gummy Boot, there's a lot of others. I tried both Grub and Gummy Boot before in my previous installations a long time ago when I first tried to install Arch Linux, and they both failed. The one that I got to work at the time was Sys Linux, and maybe again if I tried Grub, it would eventually work, but I don't know, and I never really went into that. So to download Sys Linux, we'll do pacman. We'll clear this out actually, just so there's no clutter. We'll do pacman-s Sys Linux. There we go, and great. So for Sys Linux, you have to get GPD fdisk, and GPD is the partition scheme for the hard drive that we're dealing with, and that is for all this entire installation. When we started up the hard drives, the default GPD. So using the editor I use, so it was just cfdisk. So in that, we have to get GPD fdisk, so the bootloader, Sys Linux, can understand what to boot and how to read that disk. So this gives support for Sys Linux for the GPD scheme disk. And once we're done with that, now we can begin the setup of Sys Linux. So if you are using Sys Linux like I am, we'll do Sys Linux -install _update -i-a-m, and that will set it up. Sys Linux BIOS installed successful, and then we should get another message. Attribute legacy boot. Yep, that's great. We got it. We're done. So Sys Linux is almost done with the setup. So now we have to edit this, and this is another very important step. If you do not edit this, it's a little bit of a headache, not the end of the world. You can get back from this. I actually figured out once upon a time to get back from a mistake like this, leaving this file unchanged. But that is the configuration file for Sys Linux, and you have to edit this so you tell the computer what your root is. So root is the root drive you selected again, and we have to change it here. So for this, it's 3, but for us, 3 is home. So we have to change it to 1. And that's all you had to do is change one number, and that one number can mean the difference between booting and getting an error code when we reboot the ISO, so when we reboot. And once you are done with that step, you are all finished. This is the base installation of Arch Linux. Next, what we'd have to do, if you're still in this console state, we will type an exit, if I can type properly again, and we will type reboot. So here, let's reboot, and I'll be right back. Oh, let's see if I can select it. I think I can. Great. There we go. Fantastic. So once you are presented with this screen right here, this is Arch Sys Linux. And if you're presented with this screen, you're halfway there. You've almost been successful. You hit Arch Linux or let it automatically boot. And let's see if we get welcome to Arch Linux. And we do. So welcome to Arch Linux, and it will continue to boot up. And this is the boot message screen, and then we'll be welcomed with Arch PC, and that is the host name we set up. And then get rid of this VirtualBox message so it's not in your way. And then we will type in root. That's your default name, and then the password we set. If you didn't set the password, no worries. I think the default password is root or it's nothing. It won't be anything because you didn't set one. And in here, if you've missed the step for password, you can type it here again and type in the password you missed. So, as always, my name is Dennis. Please rate, like, and subscribe. And in the next video, we're going to cover a bunch of different things: graphical interfaces, drivers, getting all that set up, and then finalizing your Arch installation. So, stay tuned. It should be the next video in the playlist, and I'll see you there.